Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good day. Um, I'm having a great day and a great week. My son is home from deployment with the Marine Corps, and he's spending a couple weeks with us. And so, in the spirit of things, let me honor, um, and just recognize all those men and women in the armed forces who are out there keeping us safe, all those who are first responders and police and firemen and our border patrol here on this wonderful border between Canada and the United States up in here in the Pacific Northwest. Thank you for your work. Um, so I wanted to do another video today for my friends and colleagues in the employment services uh, division, if you will, those of you who are helping people who are unemployed or people who are doing career exploration and planning a career for themselves. As many of you know, um, I myself spent many, many years in the employment services sector of British Columbia. And thank you to those of you who responded and with a great appreciation for the video that I had created earlier, especially for those service providers in British Columbia because you were going through um, the retendering of your contracts and the dust is settling now, I suspect. What my hope was with that earlier video was to suggest to you, because I know as a service provider and that your heart is with the folks that you work with and that you want them to experience success and be effective in the labor market. And we all know how important that is. It's such a significant portion of our lives. Um, so again, my great appreciation goes out to all of you who are in the field. Um, and again, my earlier video was really to invite the idea that as you're retendering your contracts or you're thinking about program design, that you might be in a great position to begin to integrate a trauma-informed empowerment approach. My time in the employment services um, has always been to work with what people would call maybe those folks with concurrent disorders or multiple barriers, disabilities, and folks who are considered at risk. And so my entire life and career has been dedicated to working with those folks over the last 30 years, especially people who are dealing with chronic issues to life success. So it doesn't matter where that chronic issue is. It could be in relationships, it could be in finances, it could be in career. So a lot of different facets to life where people may be experiencing challenges and chronic challenges. And one of the, I guess you could say, things that I think makes sense on the surface, but I've been studying for a long time, is the impact of trauma on life success, and specifically the impact of trauma on employment success. So success when it comes to career and employment. And so I wanted to begin inviting my friends and colleagues who are in the employment services to consider integrating, again, a trauma-informed empowerment approach. And, as far as I can tell, it's got to be those two approaches together, because I think it's fair to say that at this time in history, one of the things that is very detrimental is that people are kind of wedded to, locked into, infatuated with a victim narrative. And whether it be, in employment services or whether it be in the counseling services that I've been providing, and specifically family counseling over the last decade, it is a significant detriment to people when they begin to fixate on um, a victim narrative within themselves or within society. So one of the things I wanted to do with this video today, again, is to speak to my friends and colleagues in employment services all over the world, um, and share with you some scenarios that you're probably very familiar with, um, but you may not be suspecting that what's lying behind these scenarios is trauma. But as I said, this is my specialty, and I've been doing this for a lot of years. If you looked at the first video, you know that I created what was called the empowerment philosophy and the integrity model, or sometimes people call it the integrity approach. And I've been applying it, for 20 years, and have gotten some pretty good results. And one of those results we got was receiving the Career Management Association of British Columbia Team Award of Excellence. That was in 2004 for our work done with at-risk youth in the Baristas Youth Skills Link program. That program was outstanding. It still exists today. However, it doesn't carry with it the trauma-informed empowerment approach that I developed because I moved on. But I'm applying it within all different spheres of counseling. And like I said, currently as a family therapist for the last 10 years. So this has been well proven, and I've gotten fairly good at seeing a bit behind the scenes, if you will, of what's going on as people search for work and move forward and try to plan a career. So let me throw a few scenarios at you, see if you recognize these. Have you ever experienced clients coming into your employment center, and they tell you that they've been to a number of different services, and maybe this has been over a period of 2 or 3 or even more years, but these would be the folks that what we used to call agency hop. They go from agency to agency, employment center to employment center, and utilize all sorts of counselors' time and take all the workshops, and yet they're still not successful in obtaining employment. So have you ever seen those folks? Have you ever had a client in your employment center that's been through all of your workshops, has met with your counselors, but continues to be unsuccessful in securing employment? And this may be even a client who seems to be gung-ho. They seem to really be enthusiastic. They sign up for all the workshops. They meet with the counselors and, end up really, kind of taking quite a bit of time. But they're still not successful in even getting an interview, or obtaining employment. Have you ever had a client who has even someone who might have up-to-date certifications, might even have a degree, but they still haven't secured employment? So again, this might be the client who, again, has taken all sorts of workshops. Your employment center or you as an employment counselor have arranged for them to get subsidies to gain a variety of certifications. As I said, it might even be somebody who has a university degree. But they still haven't secured employment. Have you ever had a client who seems to have no problem securing interviews, but has never offered a job? So again, this is somebody who really probably has a good resume. They might even be a good talker. They can sell themselves, so they get the interviews, but they just never get the job. Have you ever had a client who seems to have no problem securing employment, but they can't seem to keep employment? They either quit or they're let go. So again, this is the client who gets the job. They just can't keep it. They either find excuses to quit the job or they let go. they get let go. Have you ever had a client who is consistently unemployed, but they insist on waiting for the right job? So this is the client who has been unemployed for a long time. They've used up a lot of resources in your employment center and other employment centers, but they tell you that they're just waiting for the right job, or they're just waiting for the right paying job. Or have you ever had a client who just graduated from college, but they refuse to seek a practicum? They insist it's the college's fault that they have not been hired. We see a lot of this today, and I've talked about this under the title of of the impact of indulgence and entitlement in our society. But it's really quite the phenomenon now that we see a lot of people graduating from university and college, and they either say they're waiting for the six-figure high-paying job, or they can't seem to find a job, or they end up taking jobs that are minimum wage or significantly below what they should be making, but they say it's the college's fault that they weren't prepared. Have you ever had a client who has sent out dozens of resumes, maybe even hundreds of resumes, but refuses to proactively engage in networking and volunteering? Everybody knows that's really the way to get a job. Like the college student, the way to get a job obviously is to get an internship, get a practicum, get some work experience under your belt. But this would be the college student who refuses to do that. Or this would be the average person who, we talk about the hidden job market, and the hidden job market is all about networking. It's all about getting out there and job shadowing and finding every opportunity you can to demonstrate your skills and abilities. But this would be the client who refuses to do that, or they have many excuses why they can't do that. All these scenarios will very likely, if you look closely, reveal that the person has a trauma history. The issue with trauma, there's a couple of them. And this was the secret to success in the Barista's Youth Skills Link program. We were working with at-risk traumatized youth who had come out of foster care, youth who had been in abused or neglect or what have you, youth who were hardly going to school. And the job was, of course, was to help them become employed, and to not only become employed, but to help them become employed with Starbucks. To be successful in a practicum with Starbucks, and if they could, step up to the plate and build some skill and ability, they would very likely get hired. Now, the traditional approach, of course, that people try to take with this population is one of motivation. Try to motivate somebody. Try to give them, the kind of things that they may need to be successful. Certificates and things of this nature, stipends and work, clothing allowances, all this kind of thing are kind of standard practices of the field. But this really is a case of, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Because when you're dealing with a traumatized population, there's lots of stuff that's going on subconsciously that become barriers to employment. On the surface, someone may say they want employment, but underneath that, there will be, several different agendas going on that become barriers to the person being able to be successful in either gaining employability skills or becoming employed. So the whole purpose, the whole design of that program, life skills program and component, was to go deeper was to begin to give these young people awareness into some of the subconscious patterns that were going on that basically led to them sabotaging their own success. And once those patterns were revealed and they were be able to make some new choices, then they were free to, to really be successful. As I said before in the first video, it's like trying to get from point A to point B, but you're in a car, but you've got your foot on the gas. Once you take your foot on the gas, employability becomes a piece of cake. Take your foot off the brake, right? Put your foot on the gas and you're free to go. So that's all subconscious as to why people have their foot on the brake on the one hand, but yet say consciously they want to get from point A to point B. That's what it's like when people are traumatized. They're kind of torn in two directions. But of course, the results never lie, and so the results tend to indicate that whatever's going on in the subconscious mind, whatever the subconscious agendas and narratives are more powerful than what the conscious intentions are. So, with the scenarios that I shared earlier about how people can show up in an employment center, and that they may have the best of intentions, and you as an employment service provider may believe those intentions and consequently, provide all these different services. And yet what you'll see at the end of the day is a lack of movement forward. You won't see your results. When that happens, I would suggest be highly suspicious of a trauma history. Now, of course, it's one thing to be able to detect that. So first of all, as employment service providers, you have to be willing to, to see this a little differently when these folks show up. Suspect that trauma history. Then you have to develop an approach that helps these people become more aware of that trauma history and helps them become aware of some of their subconscious self-sabotaging patterns. And you need to help them connect with a deeper sense of authentic self so then they can be empowered. So this takes definitely a bit of knowledge and education. There's the, if you will, the diagnostic part, being able to see it, and there's the application part. What do you do about it? So anyway, I wanted to share that with you, and if you can resonate with, if you are, if you see these kind of patterns going on in your employment center, suspect that trauma history. And what I suggest you do, there's a lot of things that can be done. Like with the baristas program, we were able to integrate that trauma-informed empowerment philosophy and approach into the traditional life skills curriculum. So we were still, we were still hitting our employability targets. We were hitting targets way ahead of schedule. Our outcomes were significantly better. So I know that in your heart of hearts, as employment services providers and counselors and staff, you do want to speak into the hearts of these people. You want them to be successful. You want them to realize their potential. And if they're hurt in any way and traumatized in any way, of course you want to help in that healing. But I want to say to you, it's untrue that you can't do both. It's been proven. It can be done. You can integrate into your programs an approach, as I mentioned, trauma-informed empowerment approach that complements the employability program that you're doing and complements the counseling that you're doing. And you can integrate that as a philosophy, like as a way of practice, or you can integrate that, for instance, as a standalone workshop. Or you can integrate that, as I mentioned, to a life skills curriculum. Your whole agency doesn't have to be practicing it, But if you have specific program that might be working with traumatized individuals, then you will want to take this on probably fairly seriously. But you can do both together, and in fact, you can hit your employability targets faster and more comprehensively by integrating a trauma-informed and empowerment approach. I mean, like I said, isn't that not your heart's desire? I mean, not only to help people get employed, but if you can use employment, if you will, as a vehicle through which people's trauma can be healed, and trauma is passed down from generation to generation, and so you could have a significant impact, positive impact that would diminish or even eliminate pain and suffering being passed down from generation to generation. You could help break cycles of poverty. You could have it all, folks. The technology is here for you. So, like in the first video, I welcome your comments. I welcome an opportunity to come and talk to you or your staff. Please, if you want to know more about this approach, go to my YouTube channel. All you have to do is Google or go to YouTube and put in John Solano parenting. It'll come up. So I'm going to start to do more and more videos specifically for employment services, and I will answer any questions you have about how to work with folks. I can tell you there's some really standard and easy to apply strategies and techniques. So again, shoot me a message. Check out the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and I'll be happy to to start dialoguing with you about how we can begin to integrate some of this information into your programs. So I hope this has been helpful, and I will, like I said, keep posting videos. So you guys have a good day and take care.